Professor David Worsley here. Are student conflicts disrupting your student learning time? From personal experience as a teacher, conflicts cause many hours of lost learning time. Be sure to view the entire video to discover how you can get your free 22-page student behavior plan. And it was also very stressful for me and the students. As you well know, conflicts will happen, but repeated conflicts can lead to many lost hours of learning time. In my earlier years as a teacher, the ways I usually dealt with conflict between students was sending them to the office. But as you also know, they end up coming back and the conflicts are rarely solved, which leads to more lost learning time. So there's got to be another answer, right? Well, there is. Modeling focused on conflict resolution for any aged child can be very effective in helping resolve conflicts. In fact, helping children learn how to resolve most of their own conflicts, which isn't what we prefer anyway, so that it doesn't take all our teaching time. So I want to give you a case example for upper grades using modeling of conflict resolution to help students learn how to resolve most of their own conflict. This was these are fifth grade students. Again, cognitively, they're a little bit more mature, a little bit more aware. So what you might teach in the lower grades isn't going to work in the upper grades. This is an example of two girls, Angie and Marcy, who were having great difficulty because Marcy was trying to get Angie to stay with her and not play with the other children. And Angie wanted to play with Marcy and the other children, and they were having a conflict about it, which blew up in the classroom. Other children got involved, and it took a considerable amount of time to calm them down and to focus on resolving the conflict. In this case, I first took Angie and Marcy aside during a recess, and I walked through them, and I asked them if they would do a favor for me. And this kind of redirected them in a new way, which is to look at how to resolve the conflict instead of have the conflict. Okay? So I said, would you both be willing to help me teach the class something about how to resolve or take care of conflicts so we don't have to be upset with each other? And at first they were a little confused by my question, but then they went and agreed that they would. Well, the neat thing about this was, through my teaching of them how to resolve conflict, they were actually able to resolve their own conflict, but I also could use their modeling of it for the other classmates. So what I did is I said, okay, Marcy, could you tell me a little bit more why you're upset with Angie for not playing with you? So she told me her story, and her story was that she didn't have very many friends, and that Angie was one of her best friends, and she wanted to have all her time playing with her. So I says, well, first thing of learning how to resolve conflict is to listen to each other. So I'm going to ask Angie, could you kind of tell me what you think Marcy's saying? And Angie was able to say how she thought Marcy might be feeling. Well, Marcy felt heard. But then I said to Marcy, now that Angie listened to you, I need you to listen to Angie's feelings and what happened for her, okay? So then Angie told her story. And her story was that she liked Marcy, but she also liked her other friends. She liked to have time with all of them or different friends at different times. Now, Marcy at first had difficulty with sharing what she thought Angie was feeling. So I would help her a little bit. I says, okay, so let me help you. I know it's hard to think about Angie's side when you're feeling like you're losing a friend. But what I heard Angie said was that she wanted to be your friend and the other kids' friends, other children's friend. And she was able then finally to reflect that or to say that out loud. And so the next part is, okay, now this was a upsetting time, but the way to resolve it and feel better is what if Angie not only was friends with you, but invited you to be friends with the other girls? Then you not only have Angie, but you have other friends as well. Again, Marcy had a little difficulty because she was afraid that the other girls wouldn't like her. But I said, you're not going to know until you try it out, right? So here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you model. And the last part of this showing to the class is I want you to show how you can compromise. Be able to see other person's point of view and do it a different way than you were doing before. So Marcy and Angie said, now work it out together. What do you think would work for you? So they talked for a few minutes, and they decided that on one day, for at least a week, Angie would play with Marcy for half the time. And the other half time, she would play with her other friends, but if Marcy liked to, she could also play with the other friends. And they would do that for this week to see how that worked out. And then check back later with each other. So they came up to an agreement of how they would do that. And then I asked them both, so how do you feel about resolving your conflict or taking care of your conflict in this way? Angie says, oh, this was really interesting because I could see how Marcy was feeling. And if I didn't have very many friends, I could see why Marcy would be wanting to have her as my friend. And so I'm going to try to encourage Marcy to be with me with my other friends. And also encourage my other friends to accept Marcy. Wow, of course, obviously, Angie was, in a sense, more cognitively aware and more open to change. Marcy was able to do a little shift and was able to step into it even though she was afraid. And then when they presented this to the class and how they had resolved their conflict and walked through it, all of a sudden Marcy became more popular because she was part of presenting something as a teacher in a sense. So I checked back with Marcy a few times over the next few weeks, and she indeed was feeling better and things had resolved. So this is an example of upper grades having a modeling example, and not only did it affect Marcy and Angie, other students began to use this same strategy in working things out with each other. So you can see how this could work to take less time out of class, less conflicts that end up at the office, and more children learning how to become critical thinkers themselves. Isn't that very helpful as a teacher? Then it takes much less time for you to have to go through these conflict issues. Again, I hope you had a great day. Hope this was helpful to you. My purpose in presenting this video is to provide you with strategies for managing difficult student behavior. Be sure to download a free 22-page student behavior planner found below in the comments section. It's based on my 41 years of experience as a parent, teacher, school counselor, and professor. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you later. Have a great day.